Hi, I'm Nate Piscatelli. I'm an architectural designer with CPL. I've been working for just over 2 years, almost 2.5 years. As an architectural designer, I see the project from the beginning. Usually I meet with clients, understand their needs, put their needs on paper, review those needs and what I put on the paper, and then eventually see it get built. So when I talk to the client about their needs, I don't start with what the building might look like. I start with how they're going to use the space and how they're going to go through the space. Let's say it was a house. If you get up in the morning, and then what's the first thing you do in the morning? What's the second thing? And then use those ideas and put together the space to make it most efficient. Important impacts on society. At CPL, my primary focus is K through 12, so I'm designing a lot of learning spaces for students. As we're moving into a new age of technology and focus on science, schools and learning environments are changing. So we are basically at the forefront of how we can provide a space to be able to accept this new learning workday. I wouldn't say I have a typical workday. It really depends on the phase of the project and what the project is. One day I could spend the entire 8 hours behind a computer screen drafting details, drawing, making renderings, pretty pictures. The next day I could be in the field all day looking at the construction, leading construction meetings, making sure everything goes according to the documents. So really throughout the phase of a project, your typical day changes pretty much week to week. The typical construction meeting is going to have the architect, construction manager if there is one, all the contractors involved, the general contractor, the electrical, mechanical, plumbing, and it's usually on a bi-weekly basis, maybe a weekly basis, depending on where you're at in construction, just to make sure everything's going according to plan. We make sure that the schedule is being adhered to, everything that we put in the documents is being built. It's also an opportunity to walk around and make sure that that's what's actually happening and not just talking about it at a table. As a kid from a small town, my first trip to New York City was pretty inspiring. I think I was around 7 years old, and it gave me an idea of what else there is out in the world. Fast forward 10 years from there, I was touring colleges, not really sure what I wanted to do, and as soon as I stepped into the architecture studio, seeing college students drawing, making models, putting things together, my decision was made pretty much on the spot. Yep, so I studied 5 years in Alfred State. There isn't a specific apprenticeship or mentorship that you need to have to get a job as soon as you graduate, but internships were highly recommended. I would highly recommend them. I only did one, and my only regret was not spending more summers working in an office. In middle and high school, I didn't take any classes that was directly associated with architecture and engineering. The closest would have been graphic design, where I learned how to use Photoshop and learned how to use computer programs and software, which then made it easier to transform into using things like AutoCAD and Revit. If my school would have had that as an opportunity, I would have absolutely used it. Or the most important soft skills, communication and teamwork, are probably the most important. You are working with somebody every day. Even when you're alone at your desk working for 8 hours, you're working with somebody, you're putting together documents with a group of people, and at the end of the day you're building the structure with a group of people. So you have to be able to work as a team. A starting salary is obviously going to depend on where you went to school, how long you went to school, what your degree is, what city you're in. So it would be safe to say to expect somewhere between maybe 40 and 60,000 to start. Yeah, the usual benefits, the 401k, retirement plans, the paid time off, the flexibility. Really within our field, you have a different type of flexibility than other fields because you have specific deadlines where you could work 16 hours one day and it's not going to make a difference whether you do that all in one day or split it into 2 days. So you really have that flexibility of how you're able to use your time to finish what you need to get done. On top of that, CPL does offer a Flex Friday as one of their benefits, so you can work 4 9-hour days and get off at noon on Friday, which is very appealing. What I like most would definitely be to see the end product, to see something that started off as a sketch or just an idea in your head come to life, even if it's as simple as a bunk room. It's really satisfying to see an actual idea be. I guess the most difficult part is you're not only working on one project at a time. It's very rare that that's going to be the case unless it's a huge project, which it would be difficult in itself. So when you're trying to juggle multiple projects, sometimes 4 or 5, even 6 small projects at the same time, you have to be able to manage your time well in order to fit everything into ideally a 40-hour work week. The obvious answer would be this fire station that we're in right now. I started 2.5 years ago working. About 6 months into working, I was put on this project to kind of see what it takes to start a design project, and then I was on the project throughout, and now we're here and it's about. So this would definitely be the most rewarding. One thing that came as sort of a surprise, it's not a complete surprise, was that at the end of the day, it is a business. There is a lot of paperwork involved. It's not always drawing pretty pictures, putting together documents. You do have to. There's a business side of architecture that may come as a surprise depending on the classes that your college offers and that you take advantage of in school. If I could tell my younger self how to prepare, not just for this line of work, but for college in general, was to do just a little bit better in order to make college a little bit cheaper than it is. Focus on getting the scholarships that you are able to get, and it opens up a lot of doors, and you can kind of speed things up when you do start working, no matter what type of line of work you're in. When you start off working, you're not an architect once you graduate college. You have to go through a certain amount of hours in specific areas to understand the business as a whole in order to become an architect. So understanding all of those bits and pieces to become an architect, you would theoretically be climbing up the ladder, and then showing your loyalty, showing that you're able to meet deadlines, that you're able to handle multiple projects at once. That's going to get the people that are in charge to see that you're able to move up in the company. One piece of advice I would give is to not just think about today or next week or what you're doing with your friends in high school, because it's everybody's going to tell you the same things. Those don't really matter, but they do matter at the time. But you do need to focus on what's going to happen through college. If you're able to focus on time management in high school, it's going to make it that much easier to focus in college, which would make it that much easier to do when you end up with a job. And that's where it really matters, because you have to balance life and work. One big piece, I don't know if I can't remember if I touched on this or not, but one big piece is the changes in technology. Much like we're changing the way that schools are teaching students to adapt to these learning technologies, it's happening around the world. So we're seeing different ways to use new technologies on projects like drone flying. If you're interested in flying a drone and getting your license, that is an avenue in architecture and engineering that is a possibility. Whether it's a small part of your job description or it's what you do, it's a possibility. There's different ways to use spatial data collection and use new technology to kind of scan and survey existing buildings. So these new technologies are really useful, and they are still in development. So we're trying to grab that while they start and get ahead of